It is 6:42 on a Saturday morning, and you are standing beside a gray hatchback at a self-service car wash in Columbus, Ohio. Your Navy travel mug has a crescent-shaped chip near the lid. Your sweatshirt is plain. The plastic tag on your key ring is cracked down the middle. On your phone, beneath a thumbprint and 2 layers of security, an investment account reads $1,025,160. The man at the next vacuum looks over and asks if this machine takes quarters. That is what your wealth looks like from the outside, someone who probably knows where to find change. At 9:13 this morning, you are going to send an email that would have terrified you 23 years ago. The $1 million will make that email possible. But it will not be the hardest part. At 27, you work as a systems analyst in a beige office park near the airport. Your salary is $62,400. Your half of the rent is $1,180 a month. You drive a used 2012 Corolla with one cloudy headlight, and every time the temperature falls below freezing, the fan behind the dashboard makes a noise like a playing card caught in bicycle spokes. You own 3 shirts that count as office clothes. You rotate them carefully. Your financial life fits on the back of a yellow legal pad, $8,900 in a 401k, $3,700 in savings, and $20,400 in student loans. Assets minus debt, negative $7,800. The number bothers you less than you expect. What bothers you is how visible everyone else's progress seems. Your coworker Marcus Hill is 28 and works 2 rows over in network security. He is funny, competent, and impossible not to like. On Monday, he arrives with photos of a loft downtown. On Wednesday, he wears a watch with a blue face that catches the light during meetings. On Friday, he picks you up for lunch in a new black SUV that smells like leather, plastic, and the vanilla air freshener the dealership clipped beneath the dashboard. Marcus is not reckless. He saves some money. He pays his bills. He also believes that when your life improves, the evidence should be visible. You believe that too. You just cannot afford the evidence yet. Then your manager calls you into a glass conference room and slides a compensation letter across the table. Your salary is going up by $5,600. You read the number twice. On the drive home, you mentally spend it 3 different ways: a newer car, a quieter apartment, a version of yourself who no longer checks the price before ordering dinner. At a red light, the dashboard fan starts clicking. You look at the cracked blue tag hanging from the key. Then you make a decision so small that no one will ever congratulate you for it. Before the first larger paycheck arrives, you increase your retirement contribution. You schedule a separate transfer into savings. After taxes and deductions, you leave yourself enough to improve one thing: you replace the failing fan. Not the car. The fan. The repair shop gives you the old part in a clear plastic bag. It sits on the passenger side floor while you drive home, and the silence behind the dashboard feels strangely luxurious. Marcus sees the compensation letter on your desk the next morning. "So," he says, smiling, "what are we upgrading?" You lift the Navy mug. "Already did." He laughs because he thinks you are joking. You are, partly. But the first rule of your new life has already formed: every raise must build something you cannot see before it buys something other people can. At that moment, the rule does not feel powerful. It feels like postponement. You do not yet understand that postponement and freedom can look identical in the beginning. The first year is aggressively unimpressive. Each payday, part of your money disappears before you can negotiate with it. Your workplace contribution and the fictional company match feed the retirement account. A smaller transfer builds cash. Together, your invested contributions total about $9,000 for the year. You still compare grocery prices. You still drive past the new apartment building with the rooftop fire pits. Once a month, you meet Marcus for burgers, and the server places his metal credit card on top of yours as if it is obviously the more important object. At the end of the year, your modeled investment balance is $18,523. That is not enough to change your Monday morning. It is not enough to buy a house, leave your job, or produce a story anyone wants to hear. The gain is mostly your own contribution. Compounding is present, but at this size it whispers. The important result is not the balance. It is that the decision happened 12 months ago, while the money kept moving last Tuesday, this Tuesday, and every ordinary payday in between. In the second year, you stop treating the transfer as a monthly act of discipline. It becomes plumbing. Money arrives. Some flows toward current life. Some flows toward future choices. You do not stand over the pipe giving yourself a speech. That change matters when your friends begin upgrading in clusters. One engagement becomes 3. 3 apartments become 3 houses. Group dinners move from places with laminated menus to places where the menu has no prices online. None of these choices is immoral. Many of them are joyful. But together they create a quiet social current. If your income is rising, your life should become more expensive in ways other people can recognize. You feel the current every time someone asks when you are getting a real car. At 29, the Corolla's key tag is still cracked. Your clothes still fit. Your invested balance, under the story's smooth 7% illustration, ends near $39,837. Then something changes. One evening, Marcus sends a screenshot of the quarterly bonus you both received. He has circled the amount and added a photo of an outdoor kitchen. You open your brokerage statement instead. The page does not look exciting: rows, percentages, fund names, small print disclosures. But behind those rows is a different identity. For years, nearly all your money came from hours you had already surrendered. Now a small portion of your net worth can rise or fall because you own pieces of productive businesses through diversified funds. The amount is still modest. The risk is real. Markets can fall. Nothing is guaranteed. But the category has changed. You are not only a consumer deciding which company gets your paycheck. You are also an owner, in a broad and indirect way, letting thousands of businesses compete to add value over time. No one can see that while you are standing in line for coffee. That is the first proof: invisible does not mean imaginary. At 30, the student loan balance reaches 0. You do not redirect the old payment into a lease. You add most of it to the system. Annual invested contributions rise to roughly $13,000. Your modeled portfolio ends the year near $55,626, while dedicated emergency savings reaches $17,400. For the first time, your net worth is larger than your original annual salary. Your apartment has not changed. Your car has not changed. Even your mug is the same. But when the fan begins clicking again, the sound no longer means danger. It means a repair. The outside of your life is giving increasingly inaccurate information about the inside. People like dramatic money stories because drama gives us a moment to point at. A winning ticket. A company sale. A stock that goes vertical. Your system has no moment. It has sequence. First, you contribute enough to receive the full match offered by your fictional employer's plan. The actual formula belongs to the plan, not to a motivational quote, so you read the documents instead of guessing. Second, you keep emergency money separate from investment money. The cash is not expected to perform. Its job is to be available when life refuses to schedule itself. Third, Once the student loan is gone, the payment does not become available income. It becomes an automatic investment. Fourth, every raise is divided before your lifestyle can absorb it. Half can improve your life now. Half increases the annual amount flowing toward future choices. And fifth, you use diversified, low-cost funds in this fictional scenario because you do not want your future to depend on identifying one heroic company. Diversification cannot prevent losses. It changes the shape of the risk, it does not erase it. Fees matter too, because every dollar removed as a fee is a dollar that no longer remains available to compound. The math underneath the story is simple enough to fit in a spreadsheet and uncertain enough to resist becoming a promise. Start with $8,900. Add $9,000 at the end of each of the first 3 years. Then, as debt disappears and income rises, increase annual investing to $13,000, then $17,000, then $21,000. Use 7% as a smooth annual illustration, not a forecast, and not the path a real market takes. At 33, the model reaches approximately $113,937. At 36, approximately $194,232. This is where compounding becomes easier to notice and easier to misunderstand. During the year you turn 36, you add $17,000. The modeled growth on the existing balance contributes roughly another $11,600 before that year-end deposit. The system is beginning to do work that looks almost like a second employee. Almost. It still needs time. It still depends heavily on your contributions. A bad market can erase years of apparent progress on a screen. A broad fund can fall, and a diversified portfolio can lose money. The account is not a salary. It is an ownership claim whose price moves every day. You learn to look at 3 measurements instead of 1. The first is the balance, which is emotionally loud and partly outside your control. The second is your annual contribution, which is quieter and much more controllable. The third is your fixed monthly cost, the amount your life demands before you get to make a new decision. Most people compare visible assets. Car against car. Kitchen against kitchen. Vacation against vacation. You begin comparing optionality. How many months could you live if the paycheck stopped? How much of a raise can remain unclaimed by a more expensive life? How many bad weeks can arrive before you have to make a desperate decision? At 37, your salary has climbed into the high 5 figures. Your annual investing rises to about $21,000. Marcus has become a manager. His house is bright and beautiful, with pendant lights over a marble island and a garage that closes with a soft mechanical hum. At his birthday dinner, he gestures toward your car through the restaurant window. You know you can afford better than that. He is right. That is new. At 27, you kept the Corolla because replacing it would have weakened you. At 37, you keep it because it is safe, maintained, and no longer important to your identity. Same car. Completely different reason. Quiet wealth is not the refusal to spend. It is the refusal to let spending become proof that you are allowed to feel successful. And soon, that difference will be tested by something larger than a car. The email arrives at 4:17 on a Wednesday afternoon. Subject: Organizational Update. The company has missed 2 quarters of internal targets. Your position is being eliminated. Your health coverage will continue through the end of the month. Human Resources has attached a document with 14 pages and a signature box. You read it once at your desk and once in your car. The dashboard is silent now. The parking lot is almost empty. Your badge, which opened 6 doors that morning, opens none of them tomorrow. At 39, your modeled portfolio is around $292,455. But the number you stare at that evening is $32,000, the cash reserve sitting outside the market. Your essential spending is about $3,650 a month. 7 months would cost approximately $25,550 before unusual expenses. There is no guarantee the job search will take 7 months. That uncertainty is the point. The emergency fund does not make unemployment pleasant. It makes it negotiable. You cancel 2 subscriptions, delay a weekend trip, and stop the taxable account transfer. You keep a smaller retirement contribution alive for part of the year, bringing total invested contributions to about $8,000 instead of the planned $21,000. You do not have to sell investments during a difficult moment merely to cover groceries and rent. 3 weeks later, the Corolla needs a $1,480 repair. At 27, that bill would have landed like a verdict. Now it is irritating. You pay it from the reserve and update the number on your spreadsheet. This is the first time the invisible part of your life becomes physically measurable. Not as a luxury. As the absence of panic. Marcus calls on a Thursday night. He is still employed, but the reorganization has moved him under a new director. He hates the role. He wants to quit. "I can't," he says. Not yet. His fixed commitments are close to $5,900 a month. The beautiful house is not a mistake. The SUV is not a moral failure. They are simply parts of a system that requires the next paycheck to arrive on time. Your system requires less from the next paycheck because it asked more from the previous ones. For 211 days, your life looks even more ordinary. You make coffee at home. You walk to the library with your laptop. You wear the same charcoal sweatshirt to video interviews, changing into a collared shirt only for the hour the camera is on. You reject an offer that pays less and requires a 90-minute commute. That rejection is one of the first things your money buys that cannot be photographed. 2 weeks later, you accept a better role at $116,000 with a shorter commute and work you actually want to learn. The important number is not the raise. It is 211. Those days could have been a countdown. Instead, they became a filter. When the first paycheck lands, you do not try to compensate for the months when you felt behind. You refill the emergency account. Then you restart the transfers. Annual invested contributions rise to approximately $24,000. At 42, the smooth model reaches about $435,427. The outside comparison, however, has become more dramatic. Marcus renovates the downstairs. A younger manager arrives in an electric luxury sedan. Social media delivers a daily parade of people younger than you standing beside things more expensive than yours. You are not immune. Quiet wealth does not delete envy. It gives envy fewer automatic permissions. You still want things. Sometimes you buy them. When the Corolla finally develops a transmission problem large enough to change the equation, you replace it. You buy a 3-year-old gray hatchback after comparing the total cost with the value of keeping the old car. You pay without financing in this fictional story, then spend 20 minutes in the parking lot moving the cracked blue key tag onto the new ring. This is not deprivation. It is calibration. The new car is quieter, safer, and comfortable. It is also almost invisible in a crowded parking lot. You have upgraded the experience without recruiting the purchase to announce your rank. At 43, annual investing rises to about $27,000 across retirement and taxable accounts. The modeled balance reaches $492,907. 1 year later, it reaches approximately $554,411. You cross $500,000 while reheating soup in the office kitchen. The microwave displays 19 seconds. Someone has left a paper towel over the sink. Your phone refreshes, and the balance is on the other side of a number that once felt fictional. You close the app before the microwave beeps. No one in the room knows. This is the advantage everyone talks about: no pressure to maintain an image, fewer upgrades consuming each raise, the ability to negotiate, wait, leave, and recover. But there is another side to being underestimated. If you hide every sign of progress, the people who love you may not know which version of you they are speaking to. At 46, the modeled portfolio reaches roughly $690,635. At 48, roughly $846,598. The annual contribution is still $27,000. The difference now is that the existing portfolio can produce a much larger change than your contribution in a favorable modeled year. At 7%, $846,598 represents almost $59,300 of hypothetical growth before the next deposit. Again, the market does not owe you that number. A real year can be negative. The illustration simply shows why time eventually becomes the largest part of the machine. At 50, you open the app at the self-service car wash and see $1,025,160. Across 24 annual contribution cycles in this model, you began with $8,900 and added $472,000. The remaining modeled value, about $544,260, comes from compounding under the 7% assumption. Real returns would arrive unevenly, would be reduced by fees and taxes where applicable, and were never guaranteed. But this morning, the account is not theoretical. Neither is the email waiting in your drafts. 3 months earlier, your mother stopped driving after dark. Then she stopped driving on highways. Her appointments began appearing on Maya's calendar because Maya lived 12 minutes away and you lived 45 minutes away. You offered money. Maya asked for time. So you met with your manager and proposed a 4-day schedule at 80% of your salary. You were not trying to retire at 50. You were buying back Fridays, one weekday for appointments, groceries, long lunches, or sitting in your mother's kitchen while the afternoon light moved across the floor. Your manager said the team had never structured the role that way. You said you understood. Then you waited. That pause was funded by every raise you did not fully convert into overhead. It was funded by the apartment you kept 1 year longer, the loan payment you redirected, the broad funds you continued buying when the balances looked boring, the emergency reserve that kept a layoff from becoming liquidation, and the decision to let a safe car be transportation instead of biography. 2 days later, the manager agreed to a 6-month trial. The $1 million did not allow you to command the answer. It allowed you to survive a different answer. That is a more useful kind of power. At the car wash, no music swells. You do not take a screenshot. You feed 4/4 into the vacuum and clean cracker dust from the passenger seat before picking up your mother. The number has changed your life. It just has not changed the evidence strangers can see. For years, looking ordinary protected you from lifestyle inflation, comparison, sales pressure, and the expectation that every raise should become a new monthly payment. Then, gradually, protection became concealment. You stopped mentioning financial progress because you did not want to sound arrogant. You declined expensive trips without explaining that you could afford them and simply valued something else. You answered family questions with, "I'm doing fine," even when fine meant debt-free, well-reserved, and approaching financial independence. People built stories from the empty space. Marcus assumed you had never moved ahead. Maya assumed you were one repair away from trouble. Your mother sometimes slipped a $20 bill into your coat pocket after lunch. You always put it back in her kitchen drawer. The conflict arrives on a Sunday evening at Maya's dining table. A folder of appointment notes sits between two cold cups of tea. You offer to pay for a professional driver twice a week. Maya studies you. Can you actually do that? Yes. For how long? As long as we need. She leans back. Then why have I spent 10 years thinking you were barely getting by? You give the answer that has always sounded responsible inside your own head. You say you do not need much. You say you do not care what things look like. You say money is private. Maya nods slowly. Private is fine, she says. But sometimes you use ordinary as a place to hide. The sentence follows you home. She is not asking for account statements. She is asking to know what is possible. By hiding every capability, you have forced the people around you to plan as if your capability does not exist. Quiet wealth has protected your choices. Silence has sometimes excluded other people from them. There is another cost, more private than that. You have become skilled at delaying desire. So skilled that spending can feel like failure even when the purchase supports the life you built the money to serve. You can spend 40 minutes comparing hotel prices and lose an evening that is worth more to you than the difference. You can say no from habit, then call it discipline. You can preserve the machine long after you have forgotten what the machine is for. The correction is not a sports car or a dramatic confession. It is a set of quieter changes. You tell Maya enough. Not the password. Not every account. Enough for her to plan with you instead of around you. You pay for the driver without turning the payment into authority over anyone else's decisions. You accept the reduced schedule even though the lower salary means the portfolio may grow more slowly. You replace the chipped seal on the travel mug, because keeping a useful object is different from demanding that it remain broken as proof of your virtue. And when Marcus invites you on a long weekend trip, you go. He drives. The SUV is gone now, replaced by a practical crossover. Somewhere between the city and the mountains, he tells you he has begun automating his investments. You tell him about the layoff, the emergency fund, and the 4-day schedule. You do not tell him the balance. You do not need to. He looks at the road for a few seconds. I always thought you were behind, he says. I always thought you were trapped. Both stories were incomplete. Looking rich can distort a life. So can making invisibility your entire identity. The advantage was never that no one knew. The advantage was that you did not need their knowledge to make the system work. It is still 6:42 on Saturday morning. The gray hatchback is clean enough. The cracked blue tag hangs from a key that belongs to a different ordinary car. The navy mug still has its crescent-shaped chip, but the lid no longer leaks. The man at the next vacuum asks if the machine takes quarters. You hand him 4. At 9:13, sitting in the car outside your mother's house, you open the draft and send the email accepting the 4-day schedule. Then you place the phone face down. From the sidewalk, none of this looks like a financial milestone. It looks like a middle-aged person carrying groceries toward a small brick house on a Saturday morning. That is what freedom often looks like before someone explains it. This week, look at one purchase that is meant to be seen and one automatic transfer that never will be. Do not cancel anything out of shame. Just ask what each one buys after the attention is gone. Because an ordinary life can conceal debt. It can conceal fear. It can also conceal an extraordinary amount of room. If no one could see what your money bought, what would you want it to buy?